It's time for the visit with the person of high strangeness. I want to tell you a story. You might have noticed that metaphor had an E on it, and that was sort of my doing because I thought metaphor without the E looked so like a box and so cornered in and confining. So we talked about it and just put an E on it, and so you just kind of swave it right out, metaphor, like that. So there was not a typo, that was done on purpose. A few weeks ago, we did a show with a young lady named Chandra Bensko, and people really liked her, and they said, well, we'd like to know a little more about her, and if it's convenient for you, maybe you can get in her head again and ask her some more questions. So at that time, we had told you we would do a show called about masks, and so today's title is Mask as a Metaphor. Now, which direction we're going here at this point has not been established, because we're going to be a little guided here, because sometimes when we have different hats on or different masks, we kind of turn into other things, and so we're just going to go with the flow on today's show. And the other thing I need to announce here, and I will remind you for the next few weeks, Peter Moon, the author of the Montauk books, is going to be a guest on the show and also a speaker in the Olympia and Everett area for the Friends in Washington State, and that will take place the second week in August. Now, we don't have the facility at this time, so please call the show for tickets and also for times and places. Again, this is for Peter Moon. He's going to be in our area. And so, having said all that, I will reintroduce you to our friend Chandra Bensko, and which is also a friend of Peter Moon, and that's how we all ended up here.
Yeah, I hope Peter brings out some of his humor when he comes to town. He's one of the funniest people.
You told me that. I've never encountered the humorous part of him, so
hopefully
you have to come to the show with him. So we'll just pull it right out of him. We had a lot of responses on your show, and now as far as the masks, originally when I met you, I didn't know that you was also doing masks, and so this worked out lucky for me that we can now talk about that. Would you give me the word is not really motive. What got you started making masks? And after we answer that, then I like to go backwards in time and sort of give, unless you're equipped to do that now, but we can go back in time a little bit and explain why people have or do masks in the first place.
What motivated me? Well, I've always loved masks. Mm-hmm. I really love the way that they have kind of a playfulness. Mm-hmm. You know, once masks are involved, everything changes. You know, all the rules are thrown out, and anything can happen. And I really a fan of the surreal because I think it's a little more real than real. And so I just really, I guess, got interested in masks first because they're so much like dreams, and life becomes really fluid and sort of like depictions of the astral plane or something. I guess that was my first draw to them.
Define astral plane. Wonderful. Thank you. Can you?
Astral plane.
Yeah.
I guess it's like sort of like the dream plane in a way, although we don't have to be asleep to experience it. I guess we're always experiencing it on some level, and to fully go into the astral plane, and we're going in our astral body, you know, which is maybe about this big and is emotional and intuitive and full of images floating around. It's like we've got this art floating around us all the time, and then when you focus on the astral plane, it's like a play or a dream or art or something. It's just very metaphorical and symbolic. Yeah.
Now, some of us leave messages in the plane for others. because sometimes we forgot a phone number or we don't know where to find the person, and while we out there we say, well, so-and-so, could you give me a call, and we can leave phone numbers. And then from the way I understand it, the other person's subconscious picks that up, and all of a sudden there's a thought form, and they will pick up the phone. Advertising, you can do advertising like that also. Have you found that?
Yeah, the astral plane is it's really convenient.
Convenient. It's almost as good as cyberspace.
Yeah.
It's less work.
Less polluting.
Yeah, and less polluting.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Let's see, we was going to go backwards in time a little bit. I have very little knowledge of Mask per se. What got me interested is the movie Mask, if you remember, when with Jim Carrey, after a while, after he found the mask, he went to this professor, and he was going to research the subject of mask, and he was the guy that talks like that and never changes. What do you call it when you never change your tone?
Monotone?
Monotone, yeah, this guy there. And he said, well, I just speak of mask as a metaphor. And so he said, now all throughout history, different cultures, I would say all cultures, have worked with masks, either to cover, to disguise, cover an emotion or a person. They also sometimes to frighten intruders or different tribes, and so there's also a lot of ritual involved with masks. Now, I don't know if we're going to talk about that. Let's go to your part of the mask here first.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure as we talk about mine, we'll get into that, because mask making is just such a serious tradition, you know,
It is,
which has become something so fun, and so some of mine just tend to be fun, and other ones are really moving to me.
Everybody's laughing. I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to put a mask on us. That's what everybody's talking about. Yeah, we have a studio audience today, so if you hear a laugh or something, they see us struggle here with doing these wonderful things with you here. Actually, I brought a couple of masks to the studio that Marcella, Marcella is the name of one. She's actually from Kenya, and stands for the equivalent of a goddess, and a female version for Lazarus, you know. She takes on other people's ailments, and so therefore her eyes are somewhat deformed, and
wow.
And so she actually represents certain things. Some of them are made with, we have another one in the studio, where it has actual teeth, not human teeth.
Wow.
But the teeth are actually made from, animal teeth, to give it that scary, realistic look there. I didn't bring with me, but we had in my cropper, my RV, I have masks from Peru, and they look like shrunken head, but they're made out of leather, and I wasn't thinking I should have brought those.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So actually, that's Marcella. That what I have on my face now, that's the one I was making reference to. She takes, she gives you, not you in general. She helps people with illnesses and things like that. Okay.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So I got totally sidetracked here. I got really excited about something I saw on the monitor. You had different steps here?
Yeah, just kind of a sense of where I was going to go with it.
We brought lots of pictures of...
Yeah.
Yeah, we have pictures of your masks.
Some pictures of the masks, and then these, and like this one, I think it represents one thing that everybody would be familiar with masks these days, which is just the way it's in this really nice little frame. It looks very civilized and normal, and so what you would expect to be in that frame would be you know, your mother or your girlfriend or something, and
let's pick that apart. You use the word, even though it's a mask, it looks civilized. Can you elaborate on that?
The frame, I think, looks civilized here.
Uh-huh.
But the mask inside it, my face here, doesn't look civilized. And so for me, it's kind of a joke. And it's not so much a finished piece like that. It's something I made art from. But showing the way that we present ourselves as being perfectly normal all the time, and underneath, you know, what's going on in our thoughts and our emotions is not what we present. And so I like the idea of the frame as being the facade that we present to each other, and inside something much more intense and you know, almost shocking to be seen. And so normally we wouldn't let people see us in this sort of form. They would see us more pastel.
More pastel. Now, while you were talking here, I had a thought. Do you think there's any kind of connection between tattoos and masks? Because, you know, I think in a way they're both ornaments.
Yeah, tattoos and face paint and all those things, I think, are a form of mask. I didn't bring much of my face paint stuff because I have so much of that. But it really, to me, feels like the same thing.
The same thing, yeah. I hadn't never even thought of it, and it just sort of occurred to me there.
Because sometimes masks are like this one. You know, the mask itself is showing what I'm like, but it's kind of accentuating it and making it more extreme and bringing out inner qualities, and so something like tattoos or face paint would, I think, tend to do that usually for people. Something where it's that particular type of mask where it's showing you, you know, and then there are the other kinds that are hiding you.
Yeah, I had a young lady on Ezekiel. We were talking about the homeless, and she was talking about that sometimes when you see some of the younger people that is homeless, they have these extremes in color, in lipsticks, and in the way they paint their face, and that is sort of to discourage people to come any closer.
That's interesting. I think, yeah, I think sometimes it is. But then, you know, you could go to some place like a goth club or something, and everybody...
Gothic, that's the word she used. Yeah, and she said one of the reasons that you see so many gothic-looking young people is because they try to discourage outsiders to intrude into their space, and so they appear to be something different.
It's interesting with the goth scene because I've spent a lot of time at goth clubs, and I mean, I'm just part of me just is goth, and you know, people really go to great lengths to paint, you know, black lipstick and things like that. Really paint themselves up and make a certain look that's exactly perfectly right. Like it is a mask, but it's a way to go and deal with really deep emotions.
Deep emotion.
And so even though there's a lot of distance a lot of times between people in goth clubs, you know, they'll be dancing and not looking at each other. They're very expressive. It's like if you go close to somebody and it's too mundane a conversation, you're not really seeing the real them. And so I think what some of the people are doing is pushing people away with that mask because they don't want that pretend, mundane way of relating. They want to really show who they are. They want a more closeness, really, in a way. And I think that paradoxically, that kind of makeup really allows them to communicate more strongly to people, you know, how they really feel and who they really are. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it absolutely does. And it brings me to the next question here. What would you say to the average viewer that says, why would anybody want to go to that goth period?
It's very romantic. Going to a goth club and dancing with somebody, you know, it's really elegant and kind of like being in a period piece or something, you know, because a lot of goth, you know, it's like long red velvet dresses or something, or black more often, but sometimes red. And so you can bring out that kind of ethereal, intense romanticism, but there's also the dark quality to it, and it's not necessarily identifying with anything evil, although some people do, who are goths.
You know, I think that's why I asked that, because people immediately associate that with something that's really not.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I think that's a really good point. I was just reading in Michael Moore's new book that kids are afraid to go to school wearing black at all, or any kind of unusual, you know, makeup or whatever, because that's sort of a symbol of being a rebel and a terrorist and everything now.
But it's getting so hot, you can't wear blue, you can't wear red, you can't wear black, so it pretty much narrows it down.
Yeah. And people, you know, they connect all these school shootings and things with goth, and it's really not what it's about.
It's mind
you know,
control, but that's another show.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You know, the gothic look is, in a way, it's, you know, you see people looking sort of vampiric, and it's like we've been vampirized. We've had our blood sucked out of us by the culture, and we're just expressing it, and we're saying, look, what you've done, but we're still beautiful. We can still dance, and we can still move our emotions with this expression. You know, it's a way of moving through it and processing it, I think. And it can be really creative, you know. I used to never go out without, you know, layers of mesh in all different ways, different than I wore them before, and masks on, and my face painted up, and, you know, feathers, and that was just more who I was than going out in a more simple form sometimes.
Now, with the regular talk shows, one of the big things is makeovers and things. And the other day, I actually saw a whole program where they talked about the First Lady and the Mrs. Vice President, Mrs. Cheney, Mrs. Vice President, how they look during the campaign, and now what they are, what they go through to change their looks, and the way people perceive them. And I kind of thought about this mask thing here, because they're the same people now, maybe, as they were before, and all of a sudden this appearance becomes so important. But then when you look at these makeovers, and they look different, their hair is different, their makeup is different, and in the audience, I mean, they're just like, oh, wow, they don't even recognize the same person. What does that say for the aura of a person?
Well, I guess you can change it if you do a makeover or something. You can feel good about yourself, and I guess your aura really could change.
It could change, couldn't it?
Yeah. But it does seem a little superficial.
Superficial.
What people are looking for there with the politicians.
So I see we got that, and then you had some notes here. I don't know where you wanted to go with that.
Oh, I'm just glancing at them. And
we can kind of compromise here if you like.
Oh, it's working fine.
Okay. Yeah, while we're looking at your beautiful work here. Now, and you have masks and things are on display in different areas throughout the country, right? Other than your webpage?
I'm not so much displaying the masks as I used to. I used to have them up, like in Alabama. There was an art gallery that it was just a show that I had called The Mask Maker, and it had lots of masks. But since then, I've really used those masks in my art. Like this one, I just scanned it, you know, and moved it on the scanner and things like that, and worked with it, and then that became the art. So that way, a lot of people could see it, and instead of just one person at a time, or in this case, a lot of people at a time.
A lot of people can see it.
Yeah.
I want to share a story with you that, and the friends, I've never talked about this before. A few years ago, during the conversions, that's in Ocean Shores. That's a festival where you give talks, and it's like a psychic fair, and all people, different people of different walks come together. And there was a woman there. She wasn't part of the actual vendors or anything, but she was sitting there and she drew guardian angels. And so she would look at the person and draw these angels. And I liked her work real well. So we asked her, could she stay another day? And then by aura, when she painted, she ended up, a lot of us looked like aliens. Here again, extraterrestrial. And because she did such a good job, we hired her to go to my house or someone else's house each week where the public could come and have their guardian, their guide paintings drawn. And it got so where it was, everything she painted was E.T. And it frightened her. And she quit painting, and now then she went from painting the E.T.s to masks only. Now, you as an artist, could you connect that for me here?
The connection between the painting and the masks? And
the extraterrestrial paintings, and then she went to the masks.
Well, I do think a lot of guides are extraterrestrial. I think there are a lot of them that are wonderful, but other ones that are kind of delusionary. But why would she go from painting them to making masks of them? I guess because she felt like maybe she was dealing with that delusionary aspect, the fact that maybe they were pretending to be a different type of angelic guides to the people, whereas really behind that they were the aliens. And so she was working with that difference between the surface and what was really going on through masks. I can understand that.
And then on the other hand, maybe she felt more protected with the mask, where she herself felt protected.
Oh, that's interesting.
As we were surviving here today, we was kind of talking about the fact that sometimes we wear masks to hide certain things, flaws that we have.
Yeah.
And even though you can physically see them, the expressions in our faces, in our behavior, can also act as a mask.
Yeah, kind of diversions. Get people to look at one thing instead of something else.
Or something else.
Yeah.
And detour it and reroute it. Maybe that's why she did that.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea.
Well, we got real quiet there for a minute. Sometimes that happens when seems like we get real quiet, and then we just finish our thought, and then here comes the next wave of epiphanies.
Yeah, the masks for me were partly a way of just expressing love. And when I did my mask maker show, I had people, they would lie down and I would make masks, take pieces of cloth and put it over their face. And it was sort of like making a death mask in a way. And this is an example here. This is the mask of a friend of mine, another friend named Peter Wilm. And I just felt so connected to him through time, through lifetime after lifetime. It was almost as if this lifetime is just, one of the masks that he and I are wearing. We were wearing the masks of very good friends, and in other lifetimes we were very good friends again, wearing different masks. And I wanted to just go past his face, into something pure and just, fly with him. And I did that with various other people too. And so I tended to give people honey with lots of peppermint oil on it right after I would make their mask. So they'd be, covered up while they're having the mask made. It's sort of like a burial almost. And then zing, just really waked up by the peppermint. And so people would come over sometimes and ask for
just for the peppermint fix.
For the peppermint. They'd heard legends, people I'd never even
peppermint fix.
Never even met before. And when I was doing Peter's, it was interesting. He has a twin, and his twin, all three of us are just as close. It's like we're almost one person, it feels like sometimes. And when I was making his mask, it seemed like it put him into an altered state of consciousness.
Now the mask we're actually referring to is over here on the table somewhere, so
Yeah,
not
right
to be
here.
confused with what they
coming
got there.
coming through the metal, sort of breaking out, being born, and which looks a little dangerous. So he, when he was having the mask made, he looked in the mirror, this long mirror that was right next to where he was lying, and he had a vision of his twin brother.
Oh my!
And he actually reached out to the mirror, and he felt like his brother was reaching, and so it was a real deep experience, and I felt like the making of the mask itself was a process, and I think that they've always been used that way. It's not just the finished product, but the process, and especially if it's being made with somebody's face, they go through the process as well.
Yeah.
And
so we're still waiting for the mask to come up so the friends can relate to.
Yeah, okay.
What
yeah.
you're talking about.
To me, his face is kind of beautiful in it. You know, really, it's like you can just see the opening between his lips there and the darkness inside, and that just to me is really moving. And so I had a lot of faces like that of my friends. I'm usually really transmogrified into something totally different, but they were all hanging down at eye level, so people who went to the show could all look through their friends' faces and see the art.
Now, do you see any similarities with the mask that you create in some aspect of that person? Is that your creation, or does that come out fairly early in the making here?
Yeah, I feel like in a way it was almost making the people into archetypes.
That's a good word.
One of them was sort of like the sun, really bursting with bright light and things like that, and you know, just depends on the person's quality and also my feelings about that person, which I usually didn't do a mask unless my feelings were so intense that I just had to do one, and it's a real heart-to-heart bonding to do something like that.
Now, that is actually the mask that we've been talking about all this time.
Ta-da!
Ta-da! Yeah, we did it. But it's beautiful. Now, let me go back to it for a minute here. Now, you said it was breaking out.
Yeah.
Can you tell me that again, please? Because now that we have a visual here, we can kind of.
Yeah, I just took the. It's really just a cookie tin, and painted it, and then just burst through it, tore through it. You know, a real violent action, and kind of working with some of the qualities of that person, and so it's kind of like he's being born, you know, his face being born there.
Yeah, look, Mom, no hands.
Yeah.
That's when I saw that. That came to my mind. Yeah.
Kind of coming through, you know, expressing really forcefully, but at the same time, you know, he's just back there quietly and kind of ethereally resting at the same time.
Now, in the front there we have. That's actually on your webpage. I believe it's
this one right here.
It's the one over there. Yeah. I believe that's the first thing you come to when you enter your webpage.
Yeah. Second thing actually, but
the second thing.
Yeah. You get first you see a picture where you're following the picture that's floating down the river, and then you get
that's
this.
right. Yeah, you float on the river. Yeah.
And so yeah, with this one. It's a little bit different form across, of course, on the web page, but same thing. And my fantastic webmaster, Simon Peter Hemingway, Dr. Simon Peter Hemingway, is the one who you know, put that up there.
Put that up there, yeah.
And,
yeah, we have it up on screen now. It's just beautiful. So, except on the web page, you can't really tell if it's a painting or a mask, you know, so I was well excited to see that.
Yeah, it's a photograph of a little girl wearing a mask. It was at a New Year's party, and so I just dressed her up, and she was playing around and got lots of shots of her. She was really fun.
I understand you have a son?
I do. I have a wonderful son.
Do you have daughters?
No, just that one son. And his name is Tiger's Eye, or Tommy.
Tiger's Eye, what a wonderful name.
Yeah.
On the last show we mentioned that you were that you dreamed about being an artist before you were born. So just by naming your child and all these other things, I guess your path was pretty predestined, was it not?
As an artistic direction? Oh yeah, I always explored all the arts really. You know, I was involved with music and dance and writing and every form of art. And I guess my part in my son is probably what I'm proudest of.
Well, you know, in a way, sometimes I look at myself and the friends around me, and I'm so grateful that we were born at this time. Had we been born earlier, we would have either been in a nut house or under the stake. Take your pick here. Yeah. So we talked about the astral plane here just a while ago, and then you made reference to past lives. Can you could you tie it together for us into the now and how it relates to masks?
Just the current
lifetime here, the present, yeah.
I guess there's so many directions we could go with that because masks have so many metaphors. The present time for me, I feel is kind of it's like there are people and beings out there who are very, very masking themselves, trying at their absolute hardest, harder than they ever have right now to mask themselves, because they're in the process of being unmasked. And I think part of that is happening because of really brave journalists, people like you could find on my website in the links section, who are exposing those masks. And partly I think maybe there's something about the atmospheric changes or the time period or something, but I feel like their masks are about to be exposed anyway, in some cases. And so that's why they're trying so hard to create a mask for themselves. And so in that case, the mask would be definitely hiding, pretending, and not illuminating. And so that seems like something, you know, I just want to rip their masks off. I want everybody to see. And so I'm trying to do that with the process of my art. It's trying to make it a slow process. So first people just see my art, and eventually they see things like this, which is part of the unmasking process, saying, look, this is what's behind it. And over here, you see the mask actually watching. And that's a mask that I made of my face. And so in that picture, I feel like, you know, it kind of becomes the archetypal self watching what's going on in the world. And so to see what's going on in the world, we have to kind of hide behind a mask a little bit, because we can get in trouble if we don't.
If we don't, yeah. Which brings me to something else. I had no clue I was going to go here, so, but let's try to do that. Because we are both familiar with the Montauk, books and some of the experiences that people had in there, mainly Duncan Alexander Cameron and Al Bielek and Preston Nichols and things like that. And where am I going with this? I have a talk.
I don't know.
Just say quick. Okay. Well, one of the things they were talking about in one of the talks that they gave was that they at the point now where they can actually recognize people that came from, that had backgrounds in some of those projects that were, you know, imposed on them, and so where they could actually go to a cafe in Long Island or somewhere, they would recognize, give me a word, not just the aura, but the essence of the people, and they could tell who they were and how they arrived at that.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I have no idea why I have
Well,
no
that
clue
would be the
while I'm
unmasking,
going there.
right? Because we were talking about the unmasking, going on,
yeah.
just on its own. So it sounds like maybe that's something that's just automatically happening as it's becoming clearer.
And so more and more people, whether you wear a mask or not, we will see the real you. Maybe that's where we're going with that. I just don't even know where they came from.
Yeah, and in that one, even though it's a mask that I'm wearing, it really is the real me. It's sort of taking it into something more powerful and more archetypal, and my face, you know, is very large there. You know, it's my large self also that's watching, and the expression being kind of calm and wise, disturbed at the same time. You know, so I felt like I could express all that through the mask with only my eyes showing.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to put you on the spot here. If we were to remove your mask at this time, who would we see?
Something non-physical.
Non-physical.
Because physicality is the mask. So something without boundaries. It seems like we mask ourselves with these bodies, but really it's something that just is free flowing. And I feel like, you know, if my mask was of civilization, maybe, I'm not sure the right word, but a kind of reserve, you know, that we have to keep. If my mask was not there, you know, and your mask was not there, and we were just totally being who we really are, you know, without these kind of faces, then I would just reach over and you know, just touch you with such love that you couldn't be physical.
Couldn't be physical.
You would just melt.
Yeah. It's kind of hard to explain that. We tried to do that in one of the shows about how sometimes you run into something that has such universal love that even though if they're that large in stature, they're like giants. It's really hard to explain if one never allows themselves to experience that.
Yeah, I was walking along yesterday, and I heard a noise in the woods, and I thought, oh, it's a deer. You know, I could kind of make out look like a deer, and you know, I was smiling at it. It's going to see me in a minute, and it's going to see all this love and, you know, just these deep eyes looking at it, and it's going to know I love it, you know. And then I looked again. It's like, oh, it's a person, and you know,
It's a person.
And then my mask totally changed. You know, I can't just look over at somebody I've never met necessarily. You can, like at a rainbow gathering or something, but you know, in my neighborhood, maybe you can't just look over with that kind of pure love that you would to a deer or something. You have to kind of put a little cover up. You know, I see you and I don't really love you. Don't worry.
Don't worry. Yeah,
yeah.
That's the thing. Now here again, I don't know where that's coming from either. But let's go to vampires for a minute.
Ah, okay.
We've never discussed vampires. So some people feel it's only myths. Some, like myself, I feel that it has to do with people draining energy from you without returning it. And then somewhere along the line we had a discussion about vampires. I don't recall the whole thing, but could you refresh my memory?
I think, let's see, I was talking about pictures that I made and people who dressed, who would wear face paint and things like that, like this one we talked about earlier, where it's, you know, the white and then the dark, and you know, but expressing the fact that we've been vampirized by our society. And so it makes us into a kind of vampire. Not that we have to do anything bad because of it, but like porphyria, are you familiar with that disease at all?
No.
There's several forms of it, and some of the forms are inherited, although they had to start somewhere with some problem. And there's also a form called intoxication porphyria, which is caused by chemicals the chemical companies put out, things like arsenic. And a really high percentage of the people who return from the Gulf War have porphyria. And it's a blood disease, and it's a way that you don't produce very much blood. You have very little energy coming from your blood. And so where does that energy go? You know, it must go somewhere. And maybe if we're being vampirized on purpose with these chemicals and the blood energy is being withdrawn, maybe it's going to something else. And the same way with mycoplasma. You can have this disease, which is, you know, given to us by chemtrails and things like that, a highly specialized form of mycoplasma, incognitus fermentans, which is produced in the labs. And it also, it can make us have 4% of workable blood, you know. And there's a lot of people who have that combination. The Gulf War vets tend to have both. All that blood energy going somewhere. And I think it's on purpose.
And so then they have to improvise what they need, and then of course.
Yeah, it makes you really weak to be vampirized like that.
Makes you think. And lots of times we forget that. Oh, give me her first name, Angelo, the Afro-American poet. She was on Oprah the other day. Maya Angelou.
Maya Angelou, yeah.
She was on Oprah the other day, and Oprah said, well, you know, I understand that if people use certain terms or words that you don't like, you just put them out of your house. You tell them to leave. And she says, yes, I do. She says, the reason I do this is because if they bring, she said, my house is a healing house. I'm not a healer, but it's a healing house. And when you bring things or thoughts into my home that don't belong here, I have to ask you to leave, and I will tell you and take it with you. Because if not, you are going to be stuck in my furniture and in my carpet, and then it's not mine anymore.
That's fantastic.
And I thought that was so wonderful that a mainstream type conversation took place.
Yeah.
So back to vampirism. If when we don't have what we need, it's okay. Sometimes I tell you, sometimes I'll call a friend and say, I'm running really low on energy today. Would you loan me some? And they say, well, sure. And then I allow them to help me over this hump, and then I give it back. But in vampirism, I would just take it, and wouldn't give it back.
I think that is a lot of the original purpose behind the masks, historically.
Yeah.
Because I feel like they were used by kind of vampiric gods, or at least they presented themselves as gods, like the Anunnaki, for instance, and they would come to Earth and try to present themselves as gods and make all these idols of themselves. Anything could be a mask, you know, anything that would represent them to the people in the way that they wanted to be seen, and would hide who they really were. And I believe they did that in order to take from us, like sacrifices, you know. So people would give them blood sacrifices, and they could vampirize the energy, not only of the blood, but of the horror that the people were experiencing, the fear. And so I think that, you know, masks, when you look at them, have a pretty sinister past.
Yeah.
Not that all of them were used that way, but a way of hiding behind religions and hiding behind mythologies, so they could take advantage of us. And then you see later people historically taking on these masks. So they would get up on the stage, and they'd be wearing the mask of one of those gods that was vampirizing them.
Yeah.
Because, you know, maybe they felt like that's who they should be like and wanted to emulate, and maybe it was to scare them off, you know, sort of like turn their own power against them. I think they used it for different ways. It was that their way of dealing with it. And So it seems to be that they evolved out of the masks the gods gave us, and then us trying to understand that. You know, we see something out there that's not human. How do we represent it? You know, our art, maybe masks. You know, in ancient times it would be drawings, maybe. You know, and you'd see the
carvings.
the same kind of drawings and carvings show up in their masks, and years later, still have the same beings represented in their masks, still represented now. And you can look at the ancient drawings, and there they are, you know, claiming to come from other planets.
Yeah. Now, I had a thought while I was listening to your talk there. Now, like we said earlier, if you need extra energy or need help with something, just ask, and people will help you, will give it to you, you know, once you return it, or even give it to the next person, so you can sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? You can sort of recycle some of these energies. Now, with the way we are going now, with they're talking about putting tracking devices in cells and in charts and things like that. So pretty soon, it doesn't matter what mask you choose to wear. You cannot get away from who you really are, because where am I going with this? Help me. Because it wouldn't make any difference what you look like and what your appearance is. It would go to a cellular level to keep track of.
So you can't hide.
So you can't hide anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess we're getting our own
that's timely, huh?
masks torn off
at
the same time. Yeah, that's a very real problem. You know, that's what we're facing right now. Is that, you know, we're being tracked to where, you know, sometimes people in the past would think, well, I'll just run away to the forest and they'll never find me.
You can't do that anymore.
You can't do that. You have to. I think it's pushing us beyond that. You know, we have to find some way to resist. We have to find some way to hang on to ourselves and to recognize when that's happening and to move beyond it, you know, just explode out beyond, you know, so even if they are doing that to ourselves, somewhere our consciousness is flying.
It's flying, yeah.
But it's hard, because when they do vampirize us, you know, you don't have a place to put that energy sometimes, because you don't have any way to put it. You might be leaking, you know, you might not have any storage capabilities. And I think that Tantra yoga is one of my favorite ways of building up your storage, so that if somebody does loan you energy or whatever, like you were talking about, you'd have a place to put it for a while. And it wouldn't just fall out. Taoism has a lot of practices like that.
Now, there was a little boy here a few years back, and he was in an uncomfortable situation. So he sat there with his, and he closed his eyes real tight, you know, like this. And I said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I'm invisible."
You did that too, right? We all did. I know I did.
Yeah.
I would sit in school and
close your eyes.
Close my eyes, and I would be sure nobody else in the classroom could see me.
Yeah.
I don't know why I believe that so strongly. But then later I learned how to become invisible. And so, you know, I'm very aware of this being a mask, because, you know, I learned how to really totally get out of this mask. And it's great for hide and seek.
Hide and seek,
It is. And so, you know, when I think of myself, I don't have any problems with looking past the physical mask.
Yeah. So when we have people and they rush up on us and look scary and they say, "Oh, hi, how are you?" And that's the whole thing. You know? I don't know how much time we have. Are you going to continue doing everything that you're doing now, or are you going to branch out and do just one thing, or what's next for you?
Well, let's see. I did want to talk about this one down here, which is down here on the floor, if you remember that one. It's the mask maker, and it's a woodcut, and so that really represents something in the past. I don't know if I'll do more woodcuts, but to me, that's something I can then work with, you know, take a picture of and then superimpose and things. But I wanted to talk about that one because it's the process of making a mask with this mask maker, laying the cloth on this woman's face, really it's masking the fact that they're really one being, you know, that we're all, that you and I, we flow together, and they're loci of consciousness, but that oneness, I think, is hidden by these masks of bodies sometimes if we don't remember and get out of that. And so in that picture, while that's happening, he's taking pieces of cloth off of his own face and putting them on hers. So he's slowly disappearing. It's a series of woodcuts. He's disappearing, and his face disappears, and masks appear on the wall in the series, and they start crying and bleeding and getting scarier and more intense. And he and the woman are connected by this cloth. You know, it's like it ties in, and she's unraveling, and so.
You know, that was actually part of the first conversation I ever had with you. We were at this restaurant, and we were talking about, I just remember the unraveling and how you can take part of you and wrap it onto the next person. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
How prophetic, huh?
And so I hope to keep expanding and doing all sorts of other types of printmaking and art. And, you know, I'd like to just be able to just throw it all out at everybody all at once, you know, get everything out on the web, do multimedia, put my videos with it, and music and poetry, and just, you know, have it all be multimedia, and, you know, do a poetry reading and have everything flying behind me on the screen, and my art and costumes and dance, and, you know, but I don't know if I'm up to it. So in the meantime, I can just do it, you know, the little woman behind the scenes on my computer. And
well, one of the things is that in this day and age, with everything being so expensive, we're really handicapped by monetary things here sometimes. So now we've been talking about being creative and how to do things. What do you tell the young person that's born like that? Like you said, you want to be an artist before birth. What do you tell them about when they get discouraged because they don't have the money and they can't do this? What do you say to them?
You can find art supplies, you know, walking down your street. You can make a sculpture out of things you find in the woods. And I actually wrote an article on Tantra Garden about outsider art, and it's made by people who really don't have much money, and you know, they may not use frames, they may just use recycled wood, and somebody will show up with recycled paint, you know, and you can make a picture with no money at all, and you know, people who do that are actually selling it really well, and people are looking beyond the fact that it's not expensively presented, and it's almost like a cult now to do art like that.
Yeah, you see, like in my travels, what I found that, excuse me, a lot of people no longer have to be validated by what they do to know who they are.
Yeah, that's healthy, huh? Yeah, probably a few artists have to be validated. I think that may be one thing that takes some people into art.
Yeah, because there was a time that I used to paint a long time ago, and I had an ad in the paper, and it went like a no need to wait till I'm dead. I will paint by order, not by number. And then, you know, because in order for you to make it, you either have to be dead or, you know, and it's just kind of hard. And so in the meantime, we kind of outgrown having to be validated, but we do have to eat, you know.
Yeah, I would certainly hope somebody would see the show and buy some art, so I can eat and make some more art.
Are there grants? A lot of grants available?
There are grants.
There are.
And there are grants in Washington, and you know, I don't know if they would give a grant to somebody who has things like the links I have on my web pages. That might be kind of killing my possibilities for something like that, but it's something I believe in. It's part of my art. You know.
Part of what you represent.
It's part of it.
Yeah, and here again, everything's so stereotyped. But just talking about masks, look where we went today. I mean, we went from from vampires. We went everywhere. And you
We
know what?
did.
I'm getting a wind-up sign. Time is up already.
Oh,
You have
that's
to
too
come
bad.
and see us again and show
I'd love
us
to.
some Chandra yoga, would you?
Sure.
Cool.
Yeah.
And thank you for coming, and we will see you next week. And in the meantime, just wear your face the way you see fit, and some of us will recognize you anyway. You have a nice week, and bye-bye.